I'm Lawrence Francis, host of Interpreting Wine, where today we look ahead to the London Wine Fair 2024 in the company of event director Hannah Tovey. This year's London Wine Fair takes place from Monday 20th of May to Wednesday 22nd of May at London's Olympia. Interpreting Wine and the London Wine Fair are celebrating 3 years as podcast media partners, integrating a successful in-person event with a growing podcast format. This episode serves as your concise audio guide for all things London Wine Fair, and in the show notes I'll be providing the deep links to each of the areas we discuss in the show. And if that wasn't enough, Interpreting Wine listeners can secure one of a limited number of free tickets for this year's fair. Just head to interpretingwine.com/LWF24 to learn more. In this episode, Hannah shares reflections on the London Wine Fair 2023, introduces the new and returning exhibitors at this year's edition. I share my reflections on some of the exhibitors who have worked with Interpreting Wine in the past. We discuss the London Wine Fair pop-ups, including New Zealand, South Africa and Georgia. We talk all things industry briefings. Hannah shines a light on a couple of tastings that are coming up, discusses the Concierge Service, and closes by discussing the Judgement of London. Enjoy!
I'm Hannah Tovey. I'm the event director of London Wine Fair. We're very much on the countdown now. As we record this, we are 4 days out from welcoming over 10,000 people on site to Olympia. So the excitement mounts. So always delighted to chat with Lawrence. And in fact, just to mention that this is our only podcast media partner, I think it's a really lovely reflection of how the media has grown and changed over the years, where we would have had traditional magazines. We now move into so many other categories of media partner. This, I believe, or so he tells me, is my fourth time returning. And it is always an absolute pleasure. We love to kind of chew the fat a bit, have a look back at what happened at the last edition of London Wine Fair, and then importantly, tease into what's coming up in just a few days' time.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. So let's do that then. Let's look back. So 2023, I'm sure it's a fast receding memory now, but as always, I think with these high-profile annual events, it's always important to reflect and I think to reinforce both to exhibitors and to visitors those successes that came out of that particular fair. So yeah, in any way that makes sense, start to share those at a relatively high level, and I'll of course pick up on any parts of the story I find particularly interesting.
I always have to remind myself, I suppose, that not everybody wakes up in the morning thinking about London Wine Fair that like I might do. So yeah, the 2023 edition may be a flicker of a memory for some people, but what a year. It was the first year that we got to run properly, for want of use of a better word, after the horrors of the pandemic and the impact of COVID on not only the hospitality world and scene, but equally the exhibition world and events world. So what a joy to actually have a full year to work on an event and to put on an unrestricted event. And goodness, did that show through in the response and the numbers and the outcome for the 2023 exhibition. It was universally championed as being the best edition in many years. We, in our surveys, as we always do, we would survey the exhibitors and the visitors, different kinds of questions, of course, but across both, it was universally heralded as an excellent edition. Starting with the exhibitors, our key queries would be, have they met their objectives of what they wanted to achieve on site at the fair? Many of whom will be looking at sales as a core KPI or new business or new contacts. But others have quite varied takes on it. We have everything from sort of wine charities to wine logistics companies to, you name it, anything that would support and work within the wine and drinks industry. So all of the figures were a huge leap up year on year, and we're in the 80s and 90%, which is somewhat unheard of. Usually one finds that those that do want to answer the survey might be because they are coming at it from a feedback perspective where they'd like something to change. So actually to have a universally positive response was fabulous. And then on the visitors, we asked them, did they meet their objectives? But those would, of course, be coming at it from the other side. So whether that's buying, networking, leveling up or educating. And equally, the results were way up in the 90s for that. So that translates into what we call a net promoter score that we would have each year. Many of you will know all about those, but for those that don't, it's sort of taking the detractors away from the positives and coming out with a score that tells you how well you've done, how likely a visitor or an exhibitor would be to recommend London Wine Fair. And we had a 20-point leap in our net promoter score year on year, which I've never seen or witnessed in my time, but it actually put us 16 points above the average of scores for drinks industry events. So we couldn't have been happy with that. And it tends to be the best determinant of success for a coming year. So all told, it was a joy to work on the 2023 exhibition and a joy to take in all that feedback.
One thing I would just say, Hannah, which is, again, something new for our conversation this year, is that I'm actually in the show notes, I'm going to be including direct links to a number of the different sections that we'll talk about. And I'll also include, right at the top, I'll include a link directly to the 3-page stats that look back at 2023 for anybody that really wants to get into the detail, wants to really unpick any of that and those successes. All of that being said, of course, with 4 days to go and, all of the excitement and hard work that lies ahead and anticipation that brings, I think that really, nicely segues us to looking ahead to 2024. And I think where I might encourage you to start, because I know there are lots of different areas that we want to cover today, I guess is to start with really the heart of the fair, which I see as the exhibitors, the people who've traveled from all different regions of the world to meet with the UK wine trade, to attend, to be there in person, to pour their wines. I think to really bring a part of their culture, to bring their hospitality and to create those unique in-person experiences that, as you say, previously might have been restricted in the years just gone by. So I think that's where I'd encourage you to start, really. Maybe starting with that drone's eye view around exhibitors and what that means for the fairs, getting down into perhaps some specifics around, perhaps some new or returning exhibitors.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about the fair is that it is categorically a snapshot in time of our industry. It's 3 days each year that we get to have a look at what is driving the industry, what is hoping to become a part of the industry, and what directions we're being pulled in or that we're trying to forge into. So it is this wonderful snapshot, and you can look at that from, I guess, all different angles. You can look at it kind of territorially and think about the different regions and countries that are represented year on year. And that really does feel like a huge privilege to walk. We build this little mini globe, I suppose, for those 3 days, and we wander around between these country pavilions and those that return year on year, the Frances, the Italys, different producers, of course, year on year, different sub-regions represented, but those core nations that are represented, and then and Greece, and so the more sort of European side, but then wandering into new territories. So this year, really excitingly, we'll have a huge pavilion from Japan. We've got, I think, 15 or 16 producers representing on there, but they're also doing 2 further sessions outside of their pavilion to show even more producers and more styles and more trends. So really excited about that, because that's a first for London Wine Fair, and I'm sure it's going to be very sticky content. Equally, we're really excited to see Serbia leap in this year. I think there are 12 producers on Serbia's stand, and I can't wait to meet them. That will be a real eye-opener and something new for our audience. We have a new US sales agent who's done a fabulous job of pulling in some great premium US Californian producers, and they're going to be co-exhibiting on a stand and also doing some masterclasses for us. So super premium and exciting content there from the US. That all stemmed from some research we did actually following the last edition on territories that our visitors felt were maybe underrepresented. And thus we've driven really hard to win that content. And I know there'll be a queue for some of that. Obviously, it's very difficult to reference all of them. We'd absolutely love to reference all of our exhibitors and all of our pavilions, but rest assured that there is a really lovely spread between emerging territories, as we like to think of them, and those more traditional pavilions. Sharing that space, of course, is of those UK exhibitors, so on what we call the trading floor, and that in the heart and the centre of the Grand Hall at Olympia. And I'm really happy to report that we've seen the return of some quite long-term, let's say, conspicuous by their absence, importers that we couldn't be more thrilled to see. One of whom is Menzendorf. I mentioned them because they are not just taking a stand this year, but they're building a theatre and running 4 sessions a day from that theatre. And the content is phenomenal. They have really thought not just about which key producers to put forward, and the producers themselves in most cases are attending, but they've also thought about angles on those sessions. So Menzendorf, I think it's 15 years since they were there, but equally Lanchester Wines are coming back with a bang. They are having a stand on the trading floor as per, but they are also really thinking hard about content and letting people get to know them. So they're using our theatres to run a couple of sessions as well that we would highly encourage. In fact, one of them is about building a sustainable wine list, and I think that looks set to be an absolute corker. So really pleased to see them back, along with Freshney Copestick are taking a large stand and representing Mianetto on there. And a list of others. An exciting one is Buckingham Schenk, who'd also missed a good few years, but they're coming back on their 50th year and celebrating their anniversary at London Wine Fair. So lots and lots of UK importer content for you that will be entirely new for this year and not to be missed.
Amazing. And again, I'll reiterate, I will be providing in the show notes below the deep link to the exhibitors, where you can really go in there, you can filter, you can see all of the countries there that Hannah's just mentioned. You can make appointments, you can see which wines are going to be shown there, and you can, start to, I think, plan your way around, what is a very deep set of wines, a deep set of sessions, a deep set of masterclasses. What I'll do actually though, Hannah, I will just highlight, because I've looked through the exhibitor list today, and I realized that there are some that I'll mention just really because they're regions that have mean something, slightly more to interpreting wine. I mean, I think the one that really jumped out at me, and it ties in with what you mentioned there about the Americas, was actually New York Wines,
Yes.
who were actually back in 2018 and through to the present day have been huge supporters of interpreting wine. So I'm very happy to see Dan Belmont is going to be one of the people there, and he's a sort of an ambassador at large for all things New York. Serbia, I'm so excited that you mentioned Serbia, because it's somewhere that I've actually spent some time in. I know a lot of the producers there. I know the culture. Still working on the language.
Oh yes,
and
me too.
and indeed, one of the exhibitors, Vinaria Pankovic, was actually the last episode on interpreting wine back in episode 554. So definitely check that out. And owner Milos Pankovic is going to be there, as you say, one of the Serbian wineries on the stand there. Georgia, which I think is really exciting, seeing as I've actually 2 days ago I've just returned from Georgia. So it's almost like all of these things are kind of coming together.
I would love to flag some additional content for Georgia while we're on.
Yeah, sure, please,
okay.
please.
And also ties in nicely with still being in the kind of heart of the show on that trading floor. And we have a big new area for pop-ups. We've discovered that for many people to come for all 3 days from far-flung distances can be prohibitive. So we've utilised one large space on the floor for pop-ups so that the content can revolve each day. Also nice for people that are returning day after day, that they've got some new content to find there. And so that's a big new thing for us. I'll whiz through day 1 and day 2 because they're going to be great. But I wanted to get to Georgia. But we've got a massive showing from New Zealand on day 1 with about 60 wines, about 10 regions or sub-regions. And then on day 2, we move on to South Africa. We couldn't be more thrilled about that one either, because I think it's the best showing, a broadest showing of South African wine we've had at London Wine Fair for many years. So South African enthusiasts must make it along on the Tuesday. Equally, we've got a new band of exhibitors for all 3 days on the main trading floor as well from South Africa, a collective of 4 or 5 there. And then coming on to Wednesday, because you mentioned Georgia, the IWSC are going to be showing all of their award winners. And I believe there'll be 15 tables of award-winning Georgian wines on the Wednesday, which we're thrilled about. But obviously, we also have our huge pavilion from Georgia year in year in the main trading floor. And they never fail to not only bring exciting producers, but they always think around it and make sure that their content is spot on, that they've got sessions happening on stand to keep that excitement and interest going. So very happy about Georgia.
It's going to be an impossible task to cover everything. So
I know, but you need 3 days, right?
Totally. And you need almost a 3-day podcast to
exactly
to look ahead properly. So maybe there's an idea for next year. We'll do an extended extended version.
I'll give them the coffee.
And I think there's again. I will include some deep links to all of what you've mentioned there. But again, I'm going to give you the impossible task, Hannah, really, of then starting to look ahead to, I think, some of the other elements of the sessions, perhaps, and what might be some of the other highlights of people who are going to be presenting there, and again, just picking out one or few highlights that you think might be ones that especially stand out for you and might especially be interesting for the listeners.
Yeah, sure. So I kind of touched on earlier that there tend to be themes that emerge strongly, obviously critical and important to the industry, that then are expressed through London Wine Fair, if you like. And last year we did a lot on sustainability, same again this year. But what has emerged just as strongly and seems to be running in parallel this year is the topic of equity, diversity and inclusion in the industry. I think you'd have to be under a rock to have missed that if you are in the industry, that it's important to everyone and that there are lots of key figures doing really important things. A lot of it kickstarted from the amazing survey that Queena started, more specifically on the topic of women in the industry. I think what she's done is open it up now, and we've all realised that there's still so much work to be done in that space, but equally we can look at more intersectionalities. So women too, and continue to support and look after, but opening up to those other intersectionalities. And the WSTA, the Drinks Trust, and the WSET team are working together to create an industry-owned project and program on the topic of diversity inclusion. And they are sort of second launching it, if you like, at London Wine Fair on our centre stage. And I think that very much is one not to be missed. I think Lawrence is going to be able to link us to the schedule so that that can be seen. We have other sessions happening as well. That is a really big project, but equally we have a London Wine Fair session on the topic of sort of 101. What does this mean for those that want to get back to the grassroots of what does it mean and what can we be doing better in kind of a slightly more grassroots style? How can we create better safe spaces at work and in the industry in general? And that's in our education zone. And then the Canned Wine Company are doing a really cool session on women in the industry, so championing them and where we go from here. So that, I think, is an industry theme that has certainly got a lot of traction. And we as a team here, interestingly, an all-female team, not necessarily intentionally, but certainly an excellent all-female team. And we are really happy to see that being championed at the fair and hope to be a part of an improvement on all aspects of it. So that's more, I guess, a sort of industry briefing angle. In terms of nice tasting content, there are over 80 sessions happening at Wine Fair. So the best thing you can do is drop into our session schedule, and that can be filtered either by the theatre, filtered by whether it's a wet tasting session or dry, and filtered by the day and the time. So you could do worse than to have a really good go through that. But we're really happy about the IGP Mediterranean session that we have got as completely new content that looks set to be a really strong one. And I know that I mentioned the Lanchester session before. We have the Porto Protocol team flying over from Portugal and presenting some wines. Jane Rakerson is going to present the session, and they're going to present some wines that are coming from like sustainable growers and those growers who are mindful of the circular economy and their regenerative agriculture. So that and viticulture. So I think that will be a really well received session.
As I say, Hannah, I really think we might need to have an extended session next year to really cover and to kind of do justice to everything that's on show there, because I know we've missed, I've had to miss, quite a lot out, and I think that's great in a way, because it means that, there's more people to discover, both on the website, but then also, I think to be, what's the phrase, surprised and delighted when they turn up and they either look in the booklet and see and say, oh, wow, I didn't know that was going to be happening. I didn't know that was going to be here. Or equally, as I really like to do, and hopefully I'll get to meet a lot of you and reconnect with a lot of you there, is just literally to walk around slowly and just sort of, see where you're drawn to, see where kind of the energy takes you. Because again, that's something that I think that in person will always have the advantage of over online. I think anything online, you have to be very intentional. You have to click a link, you have to be attracted by a banner or whatever it is. But, it might just be, somebody smiles at you, or you see, a couple of people having a conversation, go over and just kind of go where the energy takes you, is my absolutely esoteric take on things. But all of that being said, I know there's maybe 2 or 3 things that you've insisted that we talk about and that we close out the episode with. So I'm excited to get a bit more detail on those things that you absolutely wanted to.
Yeah, I think there's such a big thing for us is the launch of our concierge and hosted buyers program. It, as much as that wonderful happenstance and sort of meeting of people you may not have expected to is such a big part of the fair, we also know that for a busy buyer, having that diary booked and those meetings pre-organized is so important. And so we've introduced a new space, a really large space that's fully hosted to keep everybody fueled for the fair, but also has power and all the things you need for your devices these days to look after people during those meetings, so that those meetings can happen either on stand or in the hosted buyers lounge, your choice as you book them. But there's a very powerful system running in the background to make sure all of that happens. So there's, as before, those lovely algorithms that match you up with your objectives and their objectives. But we've really gone one step further this year. We've got integrations happening between our product list, which is hosted on Bottlebooks, our networking platform, and our exhibitor list. So now, as a visitor, you're immediately, once you have your ticket, sent a link into our essential planner. And in there, you can now do this really rather clever search, whether you want to search by product, person, or exhibitor company. You won't know that you're moving between all those platforms, but you would be able to find a wine and click very simply into making a meeting with the exhibitor or the person that you want to. So it's all even more powerful. But because we don't want to rely on tech alone, we know that post-pandemic, people are getting back more towards a face-to-face, person-to-person world. We have invested massively in a concierge team of humans, real life humans who pick up the phone and ring you and help you organize your diary. They help you set up your profile so that it's set up properly to make sure you get that proper algorithm help. But they ask you when you might be, available and when you'd like to have meetings and with what type of visitor. And then they search those out for you, suggest meetings, and actually fully look after you. So we think we've kind of hit the nail on the head by having the benefits of tech tied up to the benefits of real life humans who know what it's like to forget your password and get frustrated and all those other things that sometimes get in the way of people using tech. So we're really excited about that one.
Okay. And as ever, hard question to follow. I know you wanted to mention the Judgement of London.
Oh, yes.
60 seconds on the Judgement of London.
Yes, we have got features online about it, so you will want to read more, but I couldn't be more excited about the panel that we've got together. It's 20 of the greatest palates in the UK, and I really do mean that, are coming in on the Monday to taste 36 of the rarest, finest wines that have been like hen's teeth to get hold of. And their judgment, their results will be released on Centre Stage the following day. So that's Tuesday at 4:45 on Centre Stage. And the press will be there and the audience will be there, and I'm very excited about it. And we're doing all of this in homage to one of the most wonderful characters the wine industry has ever had, the inimitable Stephen Spurrier, and we're all very excited about it.
Once again, a huge thanks to today's guest, Hannah Tovey, Event Director at the London Wine Fair, expertly giving us a virtual tour of the fair that you will be able to experience in person in a few short days. As mentioned in the intro, as part of Interpreting Wine's podcast media partnership with the London Wine Fair, I'm able to offer a limited number of free tickets to Interpreting Wine listeners. So if you haven't yet registered for the London Wine Fair 2024 and would like to attend for free, simply head to interpretingwine.com/LWF24 to register today. Please note this offer will close at 12 p.m. on Wednesday the 22nd of May, which is the final day of the fair, and that there are only 15 free tickets available. So if you're interested, please don't delay. Head to interpretingwine.com/LWF24 today. And for any of you who are listening who are going to be attending the fair, I really hope to catch up with you in person there. See you soon.